What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and the stock market highlights video. The objective of this video is to talk about all of the cool stuff that happened in today's stock market and that was also presented in our daily live stream. So the first thing you guys have to understand is the stock market is in a selling program. Yes, you heard that correct, a selling program. If you want to learn more about that, just watch the past two previous days' live streams or video recaps and you'll start to learn more about that. So we're in a sell program. That means in the short term, it's a swing bearish stock market environment. So in today's live stream, we talked about market is bearish, but we're starting to get oversold. So we're going to be looking for counter long bounces at some point today. So what you're going to see here is me going back in the stock chart, finding where those low risk long supports could be, and then using that to bounce today's stock market. So we'll go ahead and click play. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the volume down on this because it's just not going to come through as good. And I'm just going to narrate what we were previously doing on today's stream. So real quick, let's kind of fast forward through some of this. So you can kind of see I am right here. So I'll zoom in a little bit if I can, but you see this blue line on the chart. Essentially at this point in the YouTube stream, we are going back and looking at the stock chart of the S&P 500 and finding things that could be used for support as the market is selling down. So real quick, what we have here is an anchored VWAP. That blue line you see, that is an anchored VWAP from a previous buy signal in the stock market, right? So what I'm doing is I'm looking as the market is selling down, what are we going to use? What are we going to use as support for this market in this current downtrend we're seeing? So we came up with the volume weighted average price from the previous buy signals of the stock market and said, we're going to try to use this as support today. So you can see I'm zooming in here. You can see that we have that volume weighted average price mapped off around $655.37 on the SPY here. So what I'm going to do is kind of fast forward this until we get into the intraday chart. So right here, you can see we have this kind of mapped off, and I should add some text here in just a second. So real quick, right there. All right, so you can see old VWAP from buy signal. Towards the end of this video, I'll teach you a little bit more about that and how you can go about finding that VWAP for the next time we run into this market situation. So that's an old VWAP buy signal that becomes a support over under. So as the market sells down into it, we look for it to get supported. All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to hit play. We're going to start fast forwarding just a little bit here. Now, you will see that I just threw this yellow box on the screen. You see that yellow box I'm highlighting? That is our first short-term counter long target. So as the market is selling down into this low, which is the old VWAP buy signal support over under, right? So just a support level. We are looking for the market to bounce. Right now it's just a counter bounce. Why? Because we know the market's in a downtrend, so this is a counter bounce, right? And so that yellow box you see me just put on the screen, that is coming from the two blue lines you see that are trailing down. So those two blue lines are VWAPs that are anchored to that previous high in the market. So essentially what are we doing? We are taking the volume weighted average price of the current 1 minute sell trend on the day, and we're using that as a target long to backtrack after hitting that support. All right, so market over the past 3 days is in a sell program. We're in a bearish market environment. We're trading down, and as we're trading down, we're seeking out low risk support areas. Once we think we have found a low risk support area and then get back long the market, our first objective is to take the market up to the shorter term trends on the day, because those would be the most achievable targets. So in this live stream, we are mentioning watching support right now on this low. And obviously, if you want to go back and fact check all the stuff I'm saying right now, you can just watch the 3-hour-long live stream. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and hit play and fast forward a little bit. All right, so essentially what's going to happen is the market's going to bounce up and it's going to go directly into our long target right there. All right, so you can see we have used the old buy signal VWAP support to bounce the market and target back to the 1 minute VWAP. Now you will see I've drawn on the screen 2 arrows, one that goes in and down and one that goes in and up. And the reason that is the case is because that is the 1 minute volume weighted average price level, which means if the price is going to stay into a downtrend, it has to reject there. If the price is going to go higher, obviously it has to get above. In that zone, that little box you see, that is essentially the stop out, or it's the volume weighted average price for everyone that had sold that leg down. We know that most people did not sell the high of the leg. We know that most probably got somewhere in the middle or the end of it. And that VWAP, that yellow zone, is their average share price, right? So think about someone who chases the market down, they get short, and then it bounces, and then they stop out, and they're all mad. That yellow box, that's their volume weighted average price, aka max pain, aka stop out. So we know that based off that last selling leg in the market, in order to basically screw over everyone that was short, we'd have to at least bounce the market back to that level. We don't have to go above it, but at least go to it. And that would most likely stop out most people that A, shorted the low, shorted somewhere in the middle, and maybe even shorted on the high. They get scared, think it's going to go higher, and they'd stop out, and it could still, again, lower high and go lower. So that's how a lot of times the market will stop you out in downtrends, right? You sell down, and then it pops up, and then you take it off, and then it goes back into a downtrend. That's that yellow box level. So essentially, we use this to bounce support, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then we go on to talking about the maximum long target for this trade. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of fast forward a lot, maybe not a lot of this, because I think there's a couple decent things we talk about. We talk about the higher low development. All right. So check this out. Go back into full screen. All right. So now on the screen, you can see we have this yellow box on the high side and this red box on the low side. So the red box on the low side, it's the same thing as the yellow box on the high side. So how we had previously taken the volume weighted average price off the most recent sell leg down, we are now taking the volume weighted average price of the most recent bounce and bottom. And that red box you now see is where higher lows should and could be developed, all right? So if the market is going to bottom here and keep going up, then we would expect A, it doesn't make a new low, or it starts to hold a higher low. And that red box is a highly valuable area in which it would do that at. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to kind of fast forward this. So you can see I'm still doing my little arrow jam where if we reject, we come back to the red box, etc. So we're going to kind of fast forward through some of this. 1 second. We end up hitting a 5-minute target on the upside, but there's so much that I could cover, but just watch. Ready? So we essentially go up, hit resistance, pull back to where? We pull back to the red box. Why? Because that's the key volume weighted average price of everyone that bought that bounce. So think about everyone who bought the low, everyone who bought the middle, and then everyone who bought the high. If we're going to effectively stop them out of the trade, we need to pull the market back. So where do we do that? Where do we bring the market back to? We bring it back to a price, a volume weighted average price that we know would most likely have taken out all of the traders on that bounce, okay? So we take it back down to the red box. Now the red box is what? That's an area where the market can create a higher low. Why? Well, other than me just saying so, I would say it's because that's the key volume weighted average price of the bounce. So anyways, we're going to go ahead. We're going to fast forward here. So this is where you would look for a higher low. So you can kind of see I'm drawing it on the screen. Hey guys, look at it. This is where the higher low needs to be developed. Obviously, if no higher low is developed here, then the market could go lower. So anyways, this is where that higher low has got to come into place. You can see it's starting to get built. So on and so forth. We're going to fast forward here a little bit. Looks like, I don't know where I'm at in this stream. There we go. All right, so even though it's not on the screen anymore, you can see the higher low was built right in that area, and now the markets are going up. And then we're going to talk about the 30-minute long target here. I got to fast forward, try and find it. Yeah, so we'll get there. Nope. There we go. So 1 second, I'm going to take us back to about here, and maybe we'll start playing it some. So I'm going to try and turn this up, and we'll see where we're at. Maybe not, it's too low. But ultimately, what's going to end up happening is the price trades up here. You see where I just circled on the screen? That's a 30-minute volume-weighted average price resistance. You'll see me map it off. Watch, ready? Just fast forward a bunch here. We'll get there. Come on, come on. There it is. So there it is. So we essentially took the market long from that yellow line on the bottom all the way up to our 30-minute VWAP resistance. Now, at the time of the market hitting support, did I know that we would trade all the way up to the 30-minute VWAP resistance? No. But we know that the 30-minute VWAP resistance area is also a logical long target that the market could, in fact, go to it. So it's like, do we know it's going to go there? Not necessarily. Is it likely it goes there? Yes, so on. And then you'll see in this photo that we were mapping off the red boxes on the downside. So based off of the previous market trend, the last low, and then what's kind of happened in between, we know that these are desired pullback volume-weighted average prices that have yet to be tested. So if the 30-minute VWAP resistance is good enough, we will roll the markets down into said price targets, all right? So we're going to go ahead, we're going to fast forward, and pretty much what you're going to see happen is the market's just going to trade down into said price levels. Wait, where are we at? Hold on. Again, we got to let this guy fast forward, hit play, and not there yet. All right, where are we at? All right, there we are. So you can see Bitcoin ends up trading down, or not Bitcoin, the market ends up trading down into those levels and so on and so forth. So that's pretty much it for the day. Just wanted to kind of get through those highlights. So the main takeaway from today is the market is in a selling program. The market was getting oversold. So instead of us being extremely bearish today, we actually wanted to look for counter longs because we figured after 3 days of downward selling pressure, probably looking at a bounce, right? So it was just a matter of finding those low risk areas for support entry on the downside and then trying to backtrack some of those current trends that were being created in the market, such as the 1 minute, the 5 minute, or the 30 minutes. And so real quick, what I'll do is I'm going to close this screen and we'll bring up TradingView and I will show you that 30-minute VWAP level. So this is how we identified, not that this was going to be the low of the day, but this is how we identified a tradable support area that ended up being the low of the day. So let's jump into here. This is, again, a 30-minute volume-weighted average price derived from a previous buy signal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take us to a 30-minute chart. You guys have learned this before. It pretty much is this. If the market is above the SMA, we're bullish. If below, bearish. Above, bullish. Below, bearish. Above, bullish. Below, bearish, etc. So the past 3 days, day and a half, whatever, we know what? We know that the market is below the SMA, so we're bearish. So that's why our YouTube streams for the past 3 days have been notifying the public that we're bearish, that the market is bearish. You're supposed to be bearish. You're not supposed to be long biased. So for the people that watch our stream, we pretty much saved them from being long and getting smoked over the past couple days. So again, we're in a bearish trading environment, but we're oversold, so we're going to try to do an oversold bounce, all right? So the way that we determined that support was by doing what? By taking our old buy signal trends and extrapolating them. So ready? What are our old buy signal trends? So whenever the market goes into an uptrend, all right? So this is the market going into an uptrend here. So that's a buy signal. This right here going below, that's a sell signal. So whenever we go into a buy and sell signal, we'll generally look at volume weighted average prices of those moves. So for example, this was the volume weighted average price of the last buy move. Now you will see the last time the market pulled back down into said volume weighted average price, we bounce, okay? So that one breaks down, market goes down, etc. All right, so what's next? So now when I look, where was the most previous buy signal, right? The previous buy signal was here. So what do? I take the volume weighted average price and I extrapolate the previous buy signal, right? So this was the previous buy signal, which told us we had potential support right there. Then that breaks down, goes down. Where's our previous buy signal trend? It was back here, and the VWAP of that one is right there. So now we use that one as a potential support long, all right? So that is how we used old price action, old buy signals in the market, buy programs in the market, use volume weighted average prices on top of those buy programs to provide future support areas when the market is going through a current sell program. That's a lot to take in. I would never expect anyone to know that. All of that lingo and terminology that you just heard is just made up in my own brain for me to kind of understand the systems that I've created and developed here on the stream. So today's low risk, long support is derived from buy signal operations that took place in the stock market maybe a month ago, and we're using volume weighted average price on top of that. So that's essentially how our support ended up being today's absolute low of day for the largest globally traded stock market ETF. So I hope that makes sense. Hope you guys like it. Remember, we do this live during our live stream. So if you participate or watch the market and you wanted to know where was the low of day and the absolute low risk support bounce today, and then be notified of that before it happens and why it's happening in real time, and then the targets you should look for on those bounces, just make sure to tune into our live stream. It's all free. Cheers.